sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when it happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to season 2 of the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing called life. So again, we are in season 2, very, very excited to be back with you all. We have some exciting topics in store for you this season. We have a few things we want to do in this episode to get us going on the season. First, because we are recording this on MLK Day, we want to start by discussing some things regarding Martin Luther King Jr. And his life and legacy. Then we'll get into some major things that occurred in pop culture since the last episode of season 1. And then lastly, we'll give you a teaser regarding some of the topics we plan to engage in this season. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brother Rod, who will be guiding us through this episode.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 2. As Kev stated, since we are recording on Dr. MLK holiday, we did want to just take a moment and go through some excerpts of his I Have a Dream speech, and just kind of get some thoughts on whether those things that he discussed during that speech have been realized or not, and how much work more we have to do. So we're gonna go around the horn, but the first excerpt that we took was the marvelous new militancy, which has engulfed the Negro community, must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence there today, or here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. So I know that's a mouthful, but having said that, who would like to kick us off with their thoughts on that particular excerpt from his speech and where we are today regarding that? Any thoughts?
I'll get going. I think that I think that we have come a long way in many aspects. Obviously, we still have a long way to go, but I think that is one of the aspects that we have progressed in. I think that overall there is more of an understanding of white allies / white co-conspirators with us that sort of thing, right? And I think that so many have kind of stepped up to the plate. You see so many um, white allies who are writing books, who are, you know, organizing, who are marching, who are doing things in a way that you maybe didn't necessarily see back in 1963, right? And so I think that we have progressed. I think that in a lot of ways, obviously, we still don't have a complete trust of the white community, but I think there are pockets, right? Again, when someone shows you, when a white person shows you that they are an ally by their actions, not just by their words, it tends to give you, you know, a little bit more, I guess, comfortability regarding what they stand for, what they're about, and maybe putting a little trust in them. So that's those are kind of my thoughts, my initial thoughts on that, I would say.
All right.
Um, yeah, that's a good excerpt from his speech. But yeah, I would say we have, echo what Kevin said. We have made some strides, and we do need, um, our European brothers and sisters to open up the doors. I look at it as they've always had the key to the house that we're trying to get into, right? They always had the key, and I look at how Joe Biden has nominated Judge Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. I mean, if it was another person that was president, that probably wouldn't have taken place. And you look at Maryland, we just elected our first black governor in Maryland. The white legislatures in Maryland, Steny Hoyer and his staff, they were instrumental in getting more on the ticket to be the next governor. So yeah, it is the help that we need them because, like that last part says, we can't walk alone, and we continue to um, understand that all we want as people of color, we just want a fair chance to fail and succeed just like everybody else has. And I think we have people who understand how important that is for our community and how we need to prepare ourselves to walk in those doors when the doors open. And I think we're doing a good job. And I think what Dr. King was saying, we prepare ourselves to walk in those doors when those opportunities take place. We can't be getting ready. We have to already be ready. And I think we've proven that as we've grown up all our lives, all of us, we've always told we got to be better. We got to be better than our counterparts. And it wasn't that our parents were telling us anything negative or to be racist. That's just how the nature of the beast is. We just have to be prepared when those opportunities walk in the door. So yes, I think we have made some great strides. There's still work to be done, but I think we've made some great strides.
Well, I'll piggyback on what you both just said. We have made great strides. Um, we do have a lot of allies, and it's a beautiful thing that we have a lot of allies, but more are needed. Um, what bothers me, if anything, is that that there are those that are in the background that choose to stay in the background. We've had a conversation with a few friends to say, well, hey, I'm your support. I'm the silent majority. I don't need you to be silent. I need you to be vocal because it only you can influence your community, or you can influence the white community as a white person better than I can as a black man. So we don't need you to be in the background. We need you to be in the forefront, walking with us hand in hand. But yeah, we have come a long way. Unfortunately, there's a extremely long way to go. And like you said, Byron, my parents said the same thing. You have to be better, and it wasn't because I wasn't smart. It was just because of how I looked. And unfortunately, my skin color was weaponized against me. So it is what it is. But we've come a long way. There's a long way to go, but I'm confident that if we can get those white allies to come to the forefront and walk with us in lockstep, that we can get where we're trying to go.
All right. So great thoughts on that. And I think the part that jumped out to me was that, their destiny being tied to ours, which means even in 1963, uh, he recognized that, the direction of this country, no matter what anyone felt about race then, that our destinies would be tied together. And that's the part that just kind of jumped out to me, aside from the fact that, us not being able to walk this journey alone, even back during, times of slavery when it was active, some slaves had a different, or should I say better experience than others, because of the support that they got uh, from some white folk that did not necessarily agree with slavery. So I look back at it now. This being 1963, we're in 23 now, so almost 60 years, and we have come a long way, right? But we know that, if you look across some institutions, it still probably feels like we're still a long way to go on that journey. So, but great points, and that was just the first part of the speech that was 7 pages long, and we're going to talk about a couple other excerpts as we go ahead. I think the second one is coming up. All right. So we must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. And, I'll just start by saying the discipline part is what stood out to me, because I will tell you, as we look around even today, and I think Dr. King recognized it with his nonviolence approach back then, and realized that it would take a great amount of discipline to get done what he was trying to get done. And it's that same discipline I think is needed today for us to continue to move forward along this journey, because there's so many things that could easily set you off if you allowed it to, without having a disciplined approach. So that was just kind of a foundational point to me, but still very powerful with the need for discipline. So anybody else want to jump in? The floor is open.
Yeah, I like what you said. Every day for us, life is a reality for us. I was talking to somebody today. It's like every day we wake up, there will be something that could irritate you for being black. If you really think about it, every day there's something that happens to black people that could irritate you every day. And if you don't have that dignity, and I was thinking back to like back during the march, when he was, when he had the march for the sanitation workers, and when they were boycotting the buses, those people had enough dignity to say, you know what, we're still, regardless to what we're facing, we still gonna hold our head up high. We may not have the money, we may not have all the resources, but we're still gonna have our dignity. And at the end of the day, for our ancestors, that's all they had was dignity. Now we've arrived a little bit more. We've got, we got access to money. We got our education. Some of us, we found that niche in life where we can still use our dignity, and now that discipline comes in to help us get past those points where every day we could be like, I'm not doing this today. I'm tired of being black today. You know what I'm saying? So so that dignity is so important, that every morning, we got to look past what society says about us, and be diligent in our dignity and in our place and who we are as a person. So I think that's what Dr. King was saying, that no matter what you face, regardless, you got to bring your dignity every day. And like you were saying, Rod, if we're not disciplined with that, hey man, we'll never know where we find ourselves. We done slap somebody, we done pull something out, and we can lose our dignity every day. Every day there's a moment for us to lose our dignity. But and I'll stop there because we can go on with that one. But I think, yeah, man, we got to keep our dignity every day. So.
Yeah, I think that that's reminiscent of one of James Baldwin's famous quotes, because it definitely takes discipline, because as James Baldwin said, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be enraged almost all the time, based upon our circumstances. So yeah, it definitely takes more than just a modicum of discipline. But as I think about this, the whole discipline and everything. And I think I'm going to tackle this from a little bit different angle, because some of these quotes that we're talking about, right? Some of these excerpts are great. They're great, right? But it annoys me sometimes when I see excerpts like this being co-opted by the white folks out there who want to kind of make Martin Luther King appear to be this thing that he really wasn't, right? He started off as this, kind of, he had this nonviolent strategy, right? He kind of maintained that throughout. But toward the end of his life, he was a totally different person. He and Malcolm X almost swapped roles, right, at the end of their lives. And, I heard someone say that Martin Luther King might be the most well-known and least understood person since maybe Jesus Christ. And I kind of believe that. I think about when I was young and thought about Martin Luther King. When I was a kid growing up in the hood of Newark, New Jersey, for me, I was like, man, Martin Luther King was a punk. I'm all about Malcolm X, right? And so as I got older, I started to understand some things a little bit better. And I see how they have, once he was assassinated, how he was rebranded, essentially, to be this completely non-violent, I'm going to take a backseat to white people, whatever, however people view him in the way that they try to portray him. His legacy has been completely whitewashed. And there's even a lot of Black people who don't understand about the man, Martin Luther King, right? He did believe in nonviolence as a strategy, especially early on. But that was because he understood that, especially for Black folks, nonviolent was going to be the most effective way to bring about change for Black folks. But more so, he was a radical and a revolutionary, right? He unabashedly, again, this is a lot of this started happening toward the end of his career, when he realized that what he was doing and the way he was going about it was not working. Changes were not happening fast enough. He unabashedly called out colonialism, capitalism, the Vietnam War, and all other atrocities and injustices, right? I talk about, again, how much I love the fact that Malcolm X's evolution kind of occurred in such a public way, right? He wasn't afraid to be wrong and make these immediate changes based on his newfound knowledge and understanding. But Martin Luther King also evolved in the public, though, maybe in a little bit more of a subtle way. But in his last few years, he became much more vocal about his criticisms of this country, so much so that after his speech on April 4th, 1967, which was titled Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence, he lost the support of many, many white folks who at least performatively supported him, to include President Johnson, right? He was both vilified and villainized. His once kind of guarded language became a lot less guarded. In fact, when he was assassinated, he was in a process of organizing the Poor People's Campaign, right, which was this plan to go out to DC, shut the city down, shut the entire city of DC down, block entrances to government buildings, keep people from getting in and out of the city, sitting in the middle of the streets, and a whole bunch of other radical things he had planned. That was the person he had become, right? And he was not only vilified and villainized by the white community at large, but a lot of Black people. He lost the support of a lot of Black people. These are the things that we don't hear talked about Martin Luther King. Everybody wants to make it seem like, oh, he was just this, and I mentioned something about it on Instagram today. I talked about how I get tired every year of seeing these kind of palatable quotes from people about Martin Luther King. But again, that's not who he was, especially at the end of his life. He had totally turned some things around, right? And then that going back to the Poor People's Campaign thing, right? It was a multiracial effort. It was going to include Black Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, everybody. And it was about seeking economic justice. And oh, by the way, when I mentioned that speech about Vietnam, when he called out this country about the Vietnam War, took place April 4th, 1967. That was the day of that speech. Not coincidentally, he was assassinated 1 year to the day of that speech, right? I do not believe that was an accident or a coincidence. But again, they like to kind of mute him these days and make it seem like he was just something that he absolutely wasn't. So I know I kind of took that from a different angle. And I also real quick want to bring up a book. I want to recommend a book. If anybody's interested in learning more about the radical nature of Dr. King, there's this book called The Radical King, and it's edited by Dr. Cornel West. So again, it's called The Radical King. I think if you want to learn more, and you can also pull up that speech of his Beyond Vietnam from 1967, and you'll get a better understanding of who he was. Because again, I just had to get that off my chest, because again, it does bother me that we make it seem like he wasn't this radical revolutionary, which he absolutely was. He wasn't just some non-violent, turn the other cheek type of person. Again, especially toward the end of his career, which is why he was assassinated to begin with, because of the kind of person that he had become and was becoming, right? And I think we actually owe it to him and Malcolm X to remain open-minded and to evolve, and not only that, but to also have the courage to make the corresponding changes based on said evolution. And I'll get off my horse and let you do your thing, Ray.
I said, doggone. I knew I shouldn't have followed you, man. You do this to me every doggone time. I gotta follow that.
And he be using SAT words too, right?
Why you think I went first?
Yes. I understand, Rod. I understand. But I bet y'all jump in before him next time. Just, I'm joking, but that was some real good stuff. I appreciate you. But I'm gonna look at it from I'm gonna read this excerpt again. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. Man, step forward in time to 2016, 2015, somewhere in there. Michelle Obama said basically the same doggone thing with a few words. When they go low, we go high. And I'm like, when folks couldn't understand to me what she meant by that. For me, it's we're still seen as a threat. We are still seen as a threat. I know I have posted, I don't know how many times on social media, my skin color is not a threat. My skin color does not make me a threat, but that's what she was saying. And that's what Dr. King is saying in here by saying we must conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline, because he knew we were seen as a threat. We are seen as angry, and we had every right to be angry for what we were going through or what our people were going through back then. We had every right to be angry. But that's why he was saying, okay, we need to be nonviolent, because that's going to be more beneficial than being violent. That's going to get us further down the road than if we are violent. Then they're really just going to shut down. When Byron made his point on, dignity and discipline, the biggest difference is, for me, from what I've seen from then to now, even though I wasn't around in those days, Black people stuck together. Black people stuck together back then when they had the bus boycotts. All the Black people said, okay, I don't care how far I have to go to get to my job, whatever, I will walk first before I jump on this bus and benefit someone that's just basically going to, use that racism against me. Justice Brown Jackson, she had to maintain her discipline when she was being grilled on things that had absolutely nothing to do with her being appointed to this the Supreme Court. Nothing to do with it, but if she had have came out of pocket and did an eye roll or a neck roll or anything else, then they would have been like, "Oh, look, see, that's why she don't need to be on there. She's a woman and she's an angry Black woman." So again, that's what I see when I look at that quote. It's basically, again, we have to act more subtle. We have to act peacefully. We have to maintain that discipline of not coming out of pocket and getting loud, because we are seen as angry people because of the color of our skin. And with that, I'm going to get off my soapbox before I get started.
Oh, good stuff. And I really appreciate, Kev, you communicating something that probably people were not expecting regarding Dr. King. There were so many things that went on that a lot of people just don't know, right? Because unfortunately, I think sometimes, we want to listen to whatever the news wants to feed us,
Absolutely.
as opposed to searching for the truth of the matter. And so we really appreciate that. And as always, appreciate the education that you deliver to us all. And with that, we're going to move to the third excerpt, which should drive even as much conversation as the last one. But in the "I Have a Dream" speech, Dr. King said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." And so again, I will tell you, and I'll go first. So just from the fact that, we read words and, all men are created equal. Dr. King said that, but what did it really mean? And I think when you start, peeling back and look below the surface, one thing clearly that white Americans might think is that historians have come out and said that when Thomas Jefferson penned that, he didn't mean that it applied to individuals. He said it was basically everyone had the right to statehood. So, but if you don't know that, or if you've never read that, and you see that from Dr. King's speech, or you hear it, you're like, okay, yeah, he reinforced the fact that all men are created equal. So why aren't we equal? Over to you, brothers.
Yeah, I would say one more thing to that is, even if he meant, individually, he certainly wasn't talking about Black people, because he didn't consider us men. Not even, we didn't even consider us people. We were 3/5 of a person, right? So no way he was talking about us being created equal. You know what I mean? And as far as, whether we have gained ground regarding that to this day, I mean, again, I said it after the first question. Have things gotten better? Sure. Since 1963? Yeah, of course things have gotten better, but still, we still have a long, long, long way to go. And no, there are still plenty of people in this country, in this world, who do not see Black people or anything other than white people to be, created equal to them. They look at us as lesser. Um, and that's played out every day, right? That's played out on television right in front of our eyes every day when we see Black folks being killed by cops. Just that one thing as an example. It's pretty evident that not everybody sees us, not all white people see us in that way. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to whoever wants to talk about it next.
I'll hop in. And you stole the words right off of my piece of paper when you said that they looked at us as three-fifths human, because that's literally what I have written down, and that we are still seen as animals. Um, I mean, it comes back to pretty much every aspect of life. Um, if we went to sports, what black people were supposed to be, let's say football. Oh, well, you're meant to be a running back. You can run really fast, but you don't have the mental capacity to play quarterback. Yet some of the best quarterbacks in the history were black. Baseball, whatever. Our mental acumen has always been seen as less for whatever reason, and it still continues today. Again, like mainly because we were seen as three-fifths human, but hopefully one day folks will see that we are equal. We were all created equal. We all bleed red when we're cut. You know, we all have the same DNA. We all came from the same place. We all originated from Africa. But uh unfortunately there are still some that can't grasp that, and when they look at me, they don't see a man, they see an animal, they see a threat. So like I said, we've got an extremely long way to go, and that's a sad thing to say in 2023. And I yield the floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 2023. We are still experiencing first for people of color in the boardroom. We still experiencing the first on the Supreme Court. In politics and CEOs. I mean, we're still experiencing the first. I think not necessarily our issue, but it's part of America's issue that we still have people that can grow up in certain parts of this country and never experience a person of color in any type of position of authority. They've never experienced having a teacher or a principal of authority, or a school superintendent, the police chief, the fire chief. I know, when we went to basic training, it might still be the case. When we went to basic training, there were some people who, for the first time, had interacted with people of color, depends on where they came from in this country. And so I think because of what they see us as is based on what they see in the media, and or what they see on TV or on videos, or sporting events or whatever. That's what they see in us, and that's all they know. So I think that part of this quote is that, yes, we are equal, but I think the more advances that we make when we have people of color in positions of authority and that do well, and people start seeing, pulling back the, well, you know what, people of color can make sound decisions, right? People of color can retire from the military and then productive members of society. We do have people of color that do graduate from high school and then go be productive members of society. So yes, we know that we're equal, but it's always, again, we always got to prove ourselves over and over again. And I think once we start, I think with this country, when we start seeing more people of color rising up into positions of leadership, hopefully that'll change. But yeah, we still got a long way to go. And even those positions of leadership, when they start seeing those people of color in positions of leadership that not only benefit people of color, but benefit the whole community, right? When they start seeing that, I think with those changes, we'll have some people that will actually buy into the creed that we're all created equal. So I'm done. I'm it. So go ahead, John.
All right. So so as you can see, I think there's a lot, certainly a lot of viewpoints surrounding various aspects of the "I Have a King" speech, and we're gonna go through two more excerpts, and then we'll be done with the speech. But sure appreciate you all engaging and bringing about different perspectives, right? Because that's the thing that most excites me is when we can have different perspectives about that. So the fourth one says, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So is that wishful thinking? Is that the nirvana state? Or what? Did he believe it then? Has it been realized since? What you think?
Yeah, that's a utopian state, whereas we seem to be living in a dystopian state. But this is really just a continuation of the last question, really, when you think about it, or the last excerpt. But um, yeah, no, it has not been realized. Of course, we're all still being judged by the color of our skin and not the content of our character. And even more so, we as Black people are judged as a whole, right? We don't have the luxury that white people have of being judged individually. And I think I mentioned this once last season about something, but when you think about it, right, when something happens on the news, when you hear about something going on the news, what's the first thing that Black people usually say when they hear that something happened? Man, I sure hope they weren't Black. And that's because we don't have the luxury. We are not given the latitude of being judged simply on the content of our character, right? On our own merits. We are judged. Everything that one of us does affects the entire race, essentially. See, that's how those Black folks are. And white people don't have to deal with that, right? They don't deal with that at all. If something happens, that a white person did, if they murdered somebody, if they raped someone, whatever the case is, it's about that person. It's not about white people as a race, right? And so, yeah, without a doubt, that has not been realized. We are still judged by the color of our skin and judged as a race versus individually.
Agreed. Agreed. Because that's I sit there and I read this excerpt and I'm like, again, 2023. I still hope the same thing for my 27-year-old. I still hope the same thing for my 30-year-old. Both of my daughters are extremely successful, well educated, and yet the first thing that anybody sees is, there's a Black woman, or she's angry. Guarantee she's angry. She's not smart enough. Both of them are smarter than most people I know. My 30-year-old is a software engineer. My 27-year-old is they're both entrepreneurs. My 27-year-old is a virtual assistant. They have some of the deepest qualities that anyone could ever hope for, but the only ones that see that, in my eyes, are people of color. Where I still worry that my daughters will be seen. I keep hoping that they will be seen by the content of their character instead of color. So yeah, that is still, even today, a hope that I pray comes true one day. I'm off.
Dr. B?
Yeah, speaking of little children. Yeah. I'm sure at that time, like all of us as fathers, we look at our children and we hope that things will be better for them. And I'm sure, Dr. King, when he made this statement, he was like, I want my children to have a better life than I did. And when you think about, for that time, okay, for a Black man to have a PhD, right, a Morehouse graduate, a pastor of church, he had everything going for him, that if his white counterpart, man, he would, if Dr. King was white everything that he accomplished, it was no big deal for them, right? But for him, even after everything he accomplished, he still had to live with the fact that, you know what, I got to deal with the fact that I got to hope that this nation will embrace my children for who they are and give them the same opportunity to fail and succeed just like I did. So, yeah. So, in that being said, that that dream is still resonate with each and every one of us. Every Black person. We might not have everything lined up as well as we think Dr. King did, but we still have that same dream. We still want that to happen for our children. And so we hope that one day that they are not judged by the skin color of their skin, because we still are. I mean, you could still be I was in conversation during Christmas time, and it was like, once I told people, I'm retired military, it's like all of a sudden now there's a certain group of people when you're with, once you tell them you're retired military, then all of a sudden things change, right? And then when you tell them that you're educated, then it really changes. Well, you're not as bad as the rest of them, and you can say, you're not as bad as the rest. And I'm like, no, I'm just as good as somebody who's a high school graduate, maybe a high school dropout. I'm just as good. You just got to give us that chance. And so I hope that one day that, besides the color of the skin, will one day we can walk into a room and we can not be judged by that. But we still got progress to make, fellas, for sure.
For sure.
Great point. We have one final excerpt, and and when this happens, when all we want, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, Black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. So, is that even fathomable, Bo? Is that something that that you can even foresee taking place? Do we ever get to that state?
Not in this lifetime. Unfortunately, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, I hate to sound pessimistic, even though I really see it more as being realistic. But and that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to fight, right? I'm obviously going to continue to march and donate and protest and do all the things, right? And have conversations and do all the things that we're supposed to do to try to see that dream realized. But just realistically, in seeing where we are today, and just when we thought we were making a little bit of progress, and every time we seem to make some progress, we take a couple of steps forward. It seems like we take many more steps backwards. You think about, Obama's 8 years, and a lot of people were claiming, oh, now we're living in a post-racial country. No, not even a little bit. And I'm not blaming Obama for Trump, but we got Trump because we had Obama, right? I firmly believe that Trump never would have been elected president had it not been for the fact that you had those all of the racist folks who felt like, oh my God, we are losing our country. This is our country and we're losing it. We got this black man who's been president for 8 years. We got to do something to take our country back. Um, and I'll talk a little bit more about that because I fear that Hakeem Jeffries might be heading down that same path where people may feel that same way. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But in any case, yeah, I just don't believe that we will see that happen in this lifetime. I really don't. but we still have to continue to struggle and fight. And I hate to use the word struggle, but that's kind of what it is. We have to do whatever it takes to try to see that through it. But just for me, realistically speaking, I just don't see it. I really don't. You know.
I agree with you, Kev. I agree. I completely agree with you. And what's it going to take? One, it's going to take a complete change of mindset. It's going to take a change of mindset by these dinosaurs and Neanderthals that we have walking the earth today. But unfortunately, they're stuck in their ways, and again, we're seen as the enemy. They're worried that they're gonna lose their majority. That's why all these brown people coming here, we're gonna lose our majority. We're gonna lose, like you said, our country. It was never yours in the first place. You stole it, yes. But that's another conversation. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a complete mindset from these, like I said, these dinosaurs and these Neanderthals. These folks are going to have to die off. They're going to have to become extinct. I don't see it happening anytime soon because this type of behavior is constantly being taught. So until I'm gonna back up just a hair. I was watching a video earlier today, and it was at a Trump rally. And one of the signs that they had hanging up said CRT is racism. And I couldn't do anything but laugh at the ignorance that I had just read. I'm like, CRT is racism. Wow. Wow. Again, so it's going to take, like I said, these folks are going to have to die off. These Neanderthals are going to have to become extinct in order for that to change. And unfortunately, like I said, this crap is being taught all too often and all too well, and they're preventing the truth from being taught, so until somebody is willing to make that, have that complete mindset change, nothing is going to change. It's going to remain the way it is.
I saw this real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm sorry. Real quick, I just wanted to because Ray mentioned CRT, and I saw something that I came across something last year that I thought was so apropos regarding critical race theory, and it said the Pythagorean theorem doesn't teach you to hate circles. The theory of evolution doesn't teach you to hate dinosaurs. Critical race theory doesn't teach you to hate white people. Theories are tools for problem solving and critical thinking. And anybody who sees it as anything other than that are racist or ignorant. Well, those two things go hand in hand, right? Or just just flat out naive. But anyway, I'll go ahead and let you go, John. Sorry.
I had a moment where I think we almost lost it. I might have to jump off again, but so Dr. King was a Baptist minister, and this is at the March on Washington, and this is a huge moment. So I think to tie up such a powerful speech with such a palatable, and this is opinion. This is my opinion. Let me let me put that out there. I'm not throwing this out there as facts and actuals, but I think great speakers have a tendency to do a great job of wrapping it up in something that can really be tasty and digestible to an audience. And I think that this note that he ended it on was a very high note for the unity of the crowd and for the historical context of the powerful speech that he was giving. But what's the reality? Like, who's not free in that group of people that he lists? is black men and black people, Protestants and Gentiles and Catholics. As long as they white, they free. So the idea that we need to hold hands and sing a Negro spiritual, like, it sounds good, but me personally, I don't need it. I mean, you could not like me. I don't care. But we do need that equity. We do need, that ability to manage our communities and to move around safely. And if your police force ain't going to do it, we need to have a police force that will. And if your politicians won't do it, we need politicians that will. And if your bank won't do it, we need banks that will. So the idea that we need to hold hands and sing songs sounds cute, but one, we're not there. Two, I don't think we're gonna get there. See, I told you I lost my moment. Look at that. Just right in the mic too. But I think that shouldn't be the priority. And I think sometimes when we get those two confused, it's like we don't need a group to like us, just respect our rights. We don't and it's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying I'm against it, but when we go out and we're talking about what we need as a community, I don't think that should be on the top of the list to hold hands and sing songs. You know what I mean? So that's just how I feel about it. Like, I think it was a great close, and I think the call to unity is something that can get ears open. But I would really challenge anyone listening to that. This is the one when we talk about how you package Dr. Martin Luther King and his message and rebrand him. This is one of those that they use to brand him in a way that makes him more what they want him to be than who he really was. But if you go up and you listen to 5 minutes prior, 7 minutes prior, 10 minutes prior, we're talking about totally different things. So, I mean, again, beautiful sentiment. Beautiful. As somebody that does speak, and that is an incredible way to wrap up a speech of that magnitude. Like, I've always thought that was just super sweet the way he did that. But is that a priority for? No, not at all. We're not there, and I don't even think that should be the priority.
Great points. Great points, and tremendous insight. And of course, something that we could probably talk about the rest of the evening.